Good morning, dear students. This is your Sudha ma'am. Welcome to the fifth session of lesson 3, that is transportation, the circulatory system. In our previous session, we studied about lymphatic system and coagulation of blood. In this session, we are going to learn about evolution of the transport system and blood pressure. Come on, let's get started. Already we have learnt evolution of respiratory organs in our second lesson. Evolution means the gradual development of organs from simple to complex. Because comparatively simple organs, the organs which are more complex can perform efficiently. So, in this lesson, in this topic, we are studying the circulatory system from unicellular organisms to multicellular organisms, how it is changed, how it is developed. That we are going to study now. In unicellular organisms like amoeba, the protoplasm shows natural movements called Brownian movements. Because of these movements, nutrients and oxygen are distributed throughout the protoplasm equally. It is a single cell, so only within the cell, because of the movement of the protoplasm, the nutrients are distributed equally. That means within the cell, nutrients and oxygen are moved freely. This is known as Brownian movement. And sponges are sedentary organisms. Sedentary means which are attached to the substratum. That means these organisms, corals we will call it as organisms, they attach to the rocks. They use seawater for transportation. They create their own currents by beating the flagella that are present on their body. So, they don't rely on only the ocean currents, they beat their flagella, they create their own water currents and brings the food nearer to them. And coming to the cnidarians, that is example hydra and jellyfish, etc. They have developed blind sac-like gastrovascular cavity. Gastro means abdomen and stomach together called gastro. Vascular, which is related to heart. That means this cavity is having a single opening surrounded by tentacles. It is a gastrovascular cavity is a cavity with single opening surrounded by tentacles. Water enter into the body. In this cavity, exchange of materials between cells and water takes place. From the water they take oxygen and along with that they send out the carbon dioxide through water outside, and along with that waste materials also sent out along with this water. So, gastrovascular cavity is the primary organ of digestion and transportation of nutrients. In platyhelminthes, example liver fluke, that is Fasciola hepatica, digestive system is highly branched and supplies digested food to all the cells directly, and wastes are collected by excretory system from each cell individually. The digested food is directly distributed to the cell and the waste materials are collected from the individual cells. So, most of the body in these organisms is occupied by digestive and excretory systems. And coming to the next phylum, that is Nematyhelminthes or Nematoda. The pseudocoelom has taken up the function of collection and distribution of materials. First of all, let us know what is coelom. Coelom is a fluid filled cavity between body wall and gut wall, that is digestive system wall, and it is lined by mesoderm cells. All the well developed organs of the body can be accommodated into it. So that is coelom, and here in Nematyhelminthes pseudocoelom is present. Pseudo means what? False. That means this coelom is not a true coelom. It is a false coelom. Means it is a fluid filled body cavity lying inside the external body wall, and it is not fully lined by mesodermal cells, hence called pseudocoelom. And in annelids, the first eucoelomate, that means the organisms which contains coelom are called eucoelomate. In annelida, first time a true coelom is found. Eucoelomate animals have developed a pulsatile vessel. That means in annelids, first time we can see a pulsatile vessel to move the fluid, and the transporting medium is blood. That means not exactly heart, but a heart-like structure which move the fluid is present first time seen in annelids, and the transporting medium is blood. And coming to arthropods, they have developed a pulsatile organ called heart. So heart can be seen in arthropoda, that is insects, to pump the blood. In arthropoda and some molluscans and some lower chordates, open circulatory system is present, and the speciality of these organisms is open circulatory system. That means blood, instead of flowing in blood vessels, floods directly to the tissues and supplies nutrients and oxygen to the tissues directly. Instead of flowing in the blood vessels, directly it flows in the coelomic cavity and supplies nutrients and oxygen directly. That is what we call it as open circulatory system. And in annelids, cephalopod molluscans like octopus and Echinodermata, that is starfish, all these are invertebrates, that means which are not having backbone. Already you learnt in your 9th class. And coming to the higher chordates, that means the animals which are having backbone, that is fish, frog, reptiles, aves and mammals. In these organisms, closed type of circulatory system is present. That means the blood flows in blood vessels. And now coming to the chambers of heart. Heart contains only 2 chambers in fishes, 3 chambers in amphibians, and 4 chambers in reptiles, aves and mammals. But in reptiles, mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood takes place, as septum is not well developed. But crocodile contain 4 chambered heart. This is an exception. In reptiles, it contain 4 chambered heart, just like aves and mammals. Both right side and left side of the heart is completely divided. What is the advantage of this 4 chambered heart? It prevents the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, so that it allows a highly efficient supply of oxygenated blood to all parts of the body. This is useful in animals that have high energy needs, such as aves and mammals. As we are warm blooded animals, we need high energy levels. That is why our heart has 4 chambers, and it prevents the mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. This is all about evolution of transport system. Now moving on to the next topic, that is blood pressure, BP. When the heart pumps blood through the arteries, the blood puts pressure on the artery wall. Means The pressure that is exerted on the artery walls by blood is called blood pressure. And BP is always measured in the upper arm artery. BP varies throughout the body, so a standard place must be used so that a person's blood pressure can be compared over a period of time. And it changes according to the activity in which the person is engaged, such as resting, walking, running, etc. Doctors measure the blood pressure with a device called sphygmomanometer. So, sphygmomanometer is the device which is used to measure the blood pressure. There are two pressure readings. One measures the strongest pressure during the time blood is forced out of the ventricles. This is called ventricular systolic pressure, and for the healthy young adult it is 120 mm of Hg. And the second reading is taken during the resting period as the ventricles refill with blood. This is called ventricular diastolic pressure, and it is 80 mm of Hg. People who have high BP during the resting period are said to have hypertension. It is 150 by 90 mm of Hg. And the symptoms of high BP are nose bleeding, headache, high irritation, easily getting anger and tiredness. And if it is left untreated, it leads to heart attack and other complications. The common factors that can lead to high BP include a diet high in salt, excess intake of fat and cholesterol, and sometimes family history also a reason. We can lower our BP levels by doing regular exercise, meditation or yoga, by taking more potassium, by reducing excess stress and reducing intake of sugar and refined carbohydrates. By following these measures, we can reduce our blood pressure. And now moving on to the low BP. People who have low BP are said to have hypotension, and the systolic and diastolic pressures are 90 by 60 mm of Hg. People with low BP show the signs of dizziness, that means lightheadedness, and nausea means a feeling of sickness, that is feeling like vomiting, and fainting. Generally, a decrease in blood volume is one of the reasons for low BP. Dehydration or severe internal bleeding also reasons for low BP. To reduce low BP, we have to take more salt because sodium can raise the blood pressure. So, we have to take more salt in case of low BP, and drinking more water by wearing compression stockings. That means these are very tight fitted and they help in the blood flow. So, wearing tight fitted stockings and medication. So, these are some methods to reduce our BP. That's all about blood pressure. Let's summarize today's topics. Today we have studied about evolution of transport system and blood pressure. With these topics, we have completed transport system in animals. Meet you in the next session with transportation in plants.